Well, thank you both so much for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This movie is crazy.
Oh,
Uh
thank you.
it's like one of those movies where I'm like, now I'm starting to question what is even happening, which I love a movie that can make the audience be like, hold on. What are we doing here? In a good way, in a great way.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so of course.
Yeah, hearing
So
that.
yeah, well, for you, where did this idea come from? And then John, what drew you to want to be a part of it?
So a bunch of ideas had been ping-ponging in my head for a long time. So that kind of formed some of the sci-fi world building stuff. But for the emotions and the characters and the narrative, it was just a bunch of personal experiences that either happened to me personally or that I had seen around me that made me want to explore relationships and explore the idea of trust and how do you actually know people?
Mhm.
How do you know people? Sometimes the closest people, sometimes there are just moments in life where you realize that even someone who's super close to you, you realize you don't really know them.
Mhm.
Sometimes I've seen that in other people, in some people's lives that are close to me. I've seen that kind of go bad and nasty in a bad way. And so that's why I was like, well, that's a great premise for a, horror, psychological horror drama, like watching a relationship deteriorate is something that we can all resonate with. And I think gets under your skin because it's just like, oh man, who could this really happen to, my husband or my wife or my whatever, or my, who are they really? There's no way to know. There's no way
Yeah.
to know who they are really because they're their own person. And so everyone's got their secrets.
I love it. John, for you, yeah. What made you want to be a part of this film?
It's a weird explanation to give when your wife is in there. But anyways,
Who
uh,
knows? Who knows?
I wanted to explore these themes as well, and just like finally someone gets me. I don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he doesn't trust anyone.
uh, no, I was stoked to do something, that I don't normally do. I've done a lot of comedies. I've done a few dramas, and this really, kind of combined all these different, sci-fi and horror, which I love both those things. Um, and to be able to kind of do that, but also knowing it was an independent film. I love shooting independent films, and getting to know the rest of the cast and the crew was just so much fun. And so it was cool to be involved in that.
Yeah, you're so good in this. Everyone is, I mean, this whole cast is so good. Like, you
Yeah.
instantly believe the story, you believe these people are real people. And I fell right into like, this is a true story. You know what I mean? Like, and it feels like something that could fully happen, which is what is the creepiest thing about it. And I love because I will have moments where I'm like, wait, did I remember that right? Or your memories change and evolve,
Mhm.
which is, I think, a theme that you heavily play throughout this. And I think that what makes it so relatable. But can you talk about the importance of including that? And really, you're going on this journey with the main character. And like I said, you're starting to question stuff yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, memories and dreams feel very connected to me, at least in my life. They feel kind of, in some ways, sort of like the same thing in that when you're dreaming, you're kind of taking all the information that's been stored in your brain and you're creating this new reality from it. But actually, when you're remembering stuff, and we talk about this in the film, you're not really remembering. You don't have some like data point that like is the memory. You're always recreating the memory. You're always like, okay, what was that? And then so you piece it together. And so and that's how we build our realities in a lot of ways, is what we remember. And so it becomes this weird, surreal, murky soup, which is kind of unsettling and disturbing. Um, and so yeah, it was fun to translate that into the film and try to create a reality where through the film you start to reinterpret what you've seen before, and kind of like start to recreate because it kind of forces you to think back to what you've already seen and what's changed, what's the same, and I don't know. It was just a lot of fun, and yeah, we had a great time doing it.
Yeah, John, for you, how fun was it getting to film that? Like certain scenes, different ways, multiple times.
Well, I mean, I'd never done anything like that, and it was fun, kind of like just trying out, as an actor, you love trying out all these different things and these different ways of telling a story and finding, it's all instead of like a whole journey through, what may take place normally over the course of several days or a month. This was one night, not even one night, it's like only like a couple hours. And so to be able to watching it for the first time last night, I actually saw it for the first time and seeing like you're repeating these, but each moment there's not even slight differences. Sometimes like you're getting parts of conversations that might have existed in some of the other cycles or some of the other moments that you didn't see before. So it really keeps it very interesting. You're not thinking like, oh, here we go again. Here we go
Yeah.
again. Watch this. So that of course helped, as an actor, it helped me to find those different more those nuances in how you're going to express yourself. But, for the most part, it was, kind of easy. I mean, you got a great director who's like just like, okay, you guys, we're on the second cycle or we're on this moment. And it wasn't too hard to track. I think on a more I could I could imagine a film that might have been like, I mean, a Christopher Nolan type thing where you're like, I can't follow at all what's going on. But this is very doable.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I had fun going all the way through it. But one thing I love is really you're in like one setting for the most part. There's a little bit at the end that's outside of the house, but you're mostly in this house. So what challenges, or is it easier to know like you're filming one location, let's get it done?
Yeah, so it's both. It's both easier and more challenging. It's easier because everything's kind of all right there and nobody has to move. We don't ever have to go to a different location. And so production wise, the logistics are simpler because everyone comes to the same place. When all the set deck is all there already. So we're not having to reset sets too much or anything like that. But it was difficult though because it felt like an anthill. It's a small house and everyone was crawling all over each other. Especially we ended up, well, I won't, we ended up having to shoot two different units in the house at the same time because of time constraints. And so we were literally on top of each other. There was the top floor was shooting a certain section and then the bottom floor was shooting a different section. That was madness. But I think the cast, it was kind of cool because John was mentioning this earlier, just how they had got to be able to like really bond because they were all so close
Yeah,
together.
yeah. I mean, it helps a lot when you are confined to these smaller places because you're like, okay, well, this is a good. I like getting to know the cast, especially in this kind of story where you're supposed to be playing friends who have known each other for years, who go way back, and it's a little bit of a reunion. And so, obviously, having being the first time for most of these actors who I've met. I mean, at least for me, meeting these actors, you are like, okay, well, we got to get to know each other. And since we don't have separate trailers or anything to go to, and it's, time constraints, like, sure, we'd have a little bit of time off, and it's just much easier to go convene in the downstairs bedroom and just hang out and talk. And you're just like there. We only really shot for barely over a week. I shot for just a week. So it was like,
Wow.
all right, it's just a quick little like summer camp or winter camp, I should say.
It
But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
was only a week that you shot for?
I
Well,
shot for a week, and then you
yeah,
guys shot for
it
additional.
was a total of 10 days.
Yeah,
So John was there
What?
for the first
so it
five.
wasn't even two
Yeah,
weeks. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's really impressive.
It was insane.
That must have been so stressful and very quick
Yeah.
moving.
We had a really good first AD. He saved us. Yeah.
Wow,
So
10 days. That's crazy. Well, it came out great. So I would never have known that you did that in 10 days. Uh,
good.
so that's insane. It's so great though. John, for you, what was your reaction when you first read obviously without spoilers, but like the end and really like exactly what was going on? What was your reaction?
oh, I don't want to give certain things away because I was like, well, I can't certain things I can't say. Um, I was definitely like, oh, so like I got involved because my younger brother is friends with Jacob. He sent me the script. I read it. And I think the first thing I texted my brother was like, um, what happened? Can you explain this to me?
Yeah.
So it is like, but by the end, I'm trying to remember in the first draft, or at least the draft I read, if
Yeah.
you explain it, because I know when we were there on set, obviously it all started making more sense because it is one of those where you're kind of like, okay, I can make these, pretty good educated guesses of what's happening. But then by the end, they are essentially explaining, I think in this version, and I don't know if you felt like in the edit, like I want to explain a little bit more, because I think in the draft that I read,
Yeah.
it's still kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
you have a little bit of an idea of what happened, but you're also like, wait, scratching your head.
Yeah.
Or maybe
No,
that's,
I'm
I
sure you're not dumb.
you said
no.
sure. You're not 100% though.
Oh, actually, I think the draft that we sent you initially ended up getting a rewrite that made it a lot more
Okay,
clear.
yeah.
So
No,
that
that's what it
shows
felt
out of
like.
it. But at least he saw something in it from the very beginning.
No, yeah, and there was an explanation, and it's like, it's enough of an explanation, but not too much so that you don't want to go back and watch again, so you can piece, okay, that's why this is happening, that's why that, so it's
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah, it was one of those movies. As soon as it ended, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely want to watch it again and be like, oh, because I know there's little bits in there. So, like, Jacob, how fun is it for you to sprinkle little hints along the way, but not too much that people are like, oh, I figured this out immediately.
Yeah, well, that was a delicate balancing act, and I was nervous that and I was just like, I was nervous the whole time that we were going to be way too obvious, and so I was trying to, I was trying to make it like a slower reveal about what's going on, so that some people might figure out really early on. Some people might figure it out like midway through or whatever. And so that it wasn't just so that it didn't feel like a gimmick. It didn't feel like there was kind of a gimmicky twist or anything like that. Um, yeah, it was stressful. But and I think what really helped was to try to look at it from the characters' perspectives in the film that you have, there's a character dynamic where one character is trying to manage a situation and the other character is trying to kind of dismantle that management. Um, and so by those two opposing goals coming together, we were able to reveal the reality of the situation in a way that made sense for the characters and hopefully for the audience as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had so much fun watching this. I was like definitely edge of my seat. But final question, how would you guys describe this movie for people to check it out? What would you say?
Oh, it's a sci-fi psychological horror that makes you jump and gets under your skin and also makes you cry. That was one of the great things last night. We had people crying in the audience by the end, which is
Yeah.
not something you often get in a horror film, going from visceral scares to deep emotion.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, yeah, put it together the best, I think. Just like, yeah, I think you described it perfectly.
Good job.
You can't add much more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And John, I